Hello, ladies and gentlemen. It is Tuesday. It is July 5th. It is 20,011. That's right. We're 20,000 years farther ahead than we thought in Day 9 Daily number 319. Hi, guys. It's Terran Week. And today we're going to be taking a look at Terran vs. Zerg. Traditionally, Tuesday is Newbie Tuesday, although this is not necessarily Newbie Tuesday as we are in Terran Week. It will still focus on a little bit more of the broad general topic that will be perhaps enticing and exciting for all of you who are feeling stuck and weary and crying in the gold and platinum and even the diamond leagues and below. But I wanted to give, of course, the extra special announcement. I made it last night on State of the Game. Let me make it once again. I have just announced a brand new league known as the After Hours Gaming League. It is not the tip-top StarCraft 2 teams duking it out. No, it is in fact the following 8 top companies: Amazon, Dropbox, Microsoft, Google, Facebook, Twitter, Yelp, and Zynga. All duking it out in a very fun, friendly, casual tournament. And the whole purpose of the tournament is to try to broaden esports in the public eye and in mainstream media. Because I love the idea of a young kid who plays games, who specifically plays StarCraft 2, involved in esports, and his parents don't quite understand, and maybe think it's weird that he's spending all that time online, but he can go, no, look at this league where all these amazing companies that you interact with daily, they're playing. And it's their engineers, these brilliant minds and these brilliant gamers who are playing it out and using, depth of strategy and all this stuff. It helps to legitimize and elevate the level of discourse around the game. So I would love it if you checked it out at afterhoursgaming.tv or ahgl.tv and root for your favorite team, or just at the very least enjoy the fun, friendly atmosphere of it all, and it's really, really exciting. And I'd like to give an extra special shout out to Microsoft, whose team slogan is the following: Macro Hard, Microsoft. Oh my god, they win at least something from the Team League, perhaps the greatest motto award. Ugh. But since I have been so diligent in my selection of words, we are only 2 minutes in, and now let us divulge the topic of today's daily. You're noticing I'm changing my stance. I'm changing my positioning. I have to get into a good get my shoes out of the way so I can look at you stance. Let's talk about my favorite phrase. You've heard me say it so often if you watch this daily. Even if you've only seen 3 episodes, you hear me say it. It is what? Yeah, I already see it getting typed. The most normal thing in the world. Thank you, chat. Of course, there was some guy who's like, I bet it's going to be this. He typed it like before I was even done. Yes, the most normal thing in the world. The most normal thing in the world. I say that a lot because I want to emphasize to people that it is absolutely correct to do something typical. It can sometimes be so addictive to get all this unorthodox stuff that you'll see players like TLO bust out every now and again, but there's nothing wrong with just doing the normal, straight, and orthodox path. But the reason I want to make that today's focus topic is that there's so much excitement and good, great, beautiful things that can come out of just sticking to a very typical standard way to play. Specifically, and I will repeat this phrase throughout the daily, less is more. A really strong strategy is generally not because there's no more funky things to add. It's because there's nothing left to take away. People will obsess about, well, maybe a ghost would be good there. Maybe a raven would have helped in that. Do you think there's some way he could have snuck in extra upgrades? Well, maybe. But it's more important to say something like, could I pull out the use of those Vikings? Could I have pulled out the use of those ghosts and just stuck down this very simple, narrow path? And we're going to look at some examples today about how much that can help you in an exciting way. Because people tend to think, oh, I want to either be fun and unorthodox and creative, or I want to be boring and dry and normal. Let's see why that's not the case. First of all, let's go into this one example game that's what you always want to do, right? Let's pop into it. See, we have MTW's Damaga in the top corner, and we have Imba Straylock from Imba FXO in the left. This is what you want to do, and I know you want to do this. We're going to see Imba Straylock do a crazy aggro, nuts bonkers style in this game. It's going to be really, really fun and exciting and appealing. Let's go ahead and times 8 this because, look, he's building a supply depot. Innovation, innovation. It's on Terminus, so we're going to see a pretty typical early expand from Damaga. Okay, Straylock goes for a fast refinery. He's killing off an Overlord. Oh, how delightful. Factory getting produced. Hellions coming out. And this push that is coming up right now is one of the most popular ways to be fun and aggressive. This is the 4 to 5 Marine. There's a 4th one. A 5th is likely en route. But 4 to 5 Marines plus this one initial Hellion that pops out. The reason you do this aggression is because, hell, if I'm teching to a starport, I probably don't need this barracks and factory for anything in the meantime. So let me just make units to attack with it. Now watch what Straylock does to follow up. This is what's going to be the thing that gets people's appetites all... You don't get an appetite wet. Can you wet an appetite? Yeah, you can wet an appetite, and that's what happens. There's just a lot of moisture. We're going to see the push come in. Alright, great. Fun fanciness. Doing lots of damage. Here comes the Hellion. This is your typical push. Oh, he picks off a Queen. I want to do this too. I want to be a master of the units and push super aggressively. Uh-oh. Looks like maybe Straylock lost stuff. No, he's actually going to come in and do a big follow-up aggression. Oh, how crazy. Generally, you actually stop with the first handful of Marines and the first handful of Hellion out. But we see this medevac come in, and we see the GG from Damaga. This is the sort of thing that a lot of people will start doing as a crutch strategy, particularly in your bronze, silver, and gold area. In those leagues, if you just have a play, you can win really easily. And this is a play that can seem so addicting. I push his front, kill a queen, and then I do a drop. But you know what? This is why I'm always leery of this style of play. Let's take a trip to Straylock's main. Let's see the problem with this. He's doing a lot of the more. He's doing more aggression with Hellions. He's doing more drops. He's making more crazy tech stuff. Back here, I mean, if we even go to the unit counting station, there's 5 Marines, and where are they all? There's one. The other 4 are over here. In his main, he is going to have another Marine. His factory doesn't have an add-on. He's building a second barracks. He's just starting a command center. Straylock actually is kind of behind in every other way. And that might actually seem not that big a deal to you, because you're like, oh, he's doing tons of damage. We're going to now look at a game where Straylock does do even more damage at the start of the game in an absolute way. But we're going to suddenly see him struggle. We're going to suddenly see him struggle. So in this game that I actually just loaded up over here on the main screen, we're going to see Straylock do a build that involves a lot of very clever, fancy tech rearrangement that goes on. Now, for any of you who didn't know this, no matter how much crazy deviation that you end up doing, whoa, excuse me, phone, excuse me, how unprofessional of me to get texted, but just for the record, it was a really cute girl. I'm lying. So, anyways, in general, in StarCraft, you have your basic solid framework. For Terran versus Zerg, what's that solid framework that all of you have seen and know and love? Marine, Tank, Medevac. Very solid, simple framework. And what you'll always hear me talk about a lot, especially in live tournaments, is the brilliant way in which someone rearranges all their stuff to pop back to that normal framework. Let's go through the opening of the game really, really, really fast, just to see an example of all that rearrangement going on. Because what Straylock does is brilliant. You must accept, after you see this, that this is brilliant. So we're going to speed through it really, really quickly. So we're going to see Straylock. Let's actually just go to the IMBA Straylock cam. The IMBA camera. Okay, we're seeing him go for the barracks. We're seeing him go for the refinery. And here he is. He's popping down a supply depot. Okay, he's going for a tech lab. That's fine. And we see a Reaper going down. Come on, computer, don't die on me. And then, with the minerals he's saving by opening Reapers, he uses those minerals to get a command center. And he's going to make that one Reaper, and then look at this. Look how clever this is. He's getting a factory, and he's giving it to the tech lab. You're going to see a lot of crazy rearrangement going on. And then the factory finishes, at which point he immediately gets the Infernal Pre-Igniter and begins making Hellions. And, by the way, if we look at the mini-map, ooh, he's doing some harassment with a Reaper. It's looking good, right? And then he's going to be getting a starport. But again, as I'm going through this first playthrough, I want you to think about how brilliantly Straylock is going to bounce back to normal, right? And what do we have here? Suddenly, as he's doing this Blue Flame Hellion with Medevac and Marine push, we begin to see, bum-ba-da-da, he's getting a tech lab. Oh, hey, he's getting siege tanks. Oh, hey, he's just making Marines. Look, there's 2 reactors going down. Oh, look, he's getting stim. Yeah, he now has a good setup for Marine, tank, Medevac. For all that fanciness that occurred with a Reaper and an Expand and then lifting and rearranging and giving the factory to the tech lab and then going for Blue Flame Hellion and fast drop, he has landed himself back to that core typical structure. This is absolutely essential no matter what you're doing. But here's the problem I have with this sort of play. We're going to see some big problems begin to arise in Straylock's play at this point. And we're even going to write down some numbers so that way we can compare it absolutely. And I'm going to use my favorite famed friend notepad as we go through this. So here's the first thing that people will get overly excited about in terms of deviation that they will become overly excited about. Oh my gosh, the possibilities of this Reaper harass. I'll actually cut a little bit farther ahead in the game. The Reaper is going to finish up. Everyone's seen a Reaper expand. But then they think to themselves, I want a Reaper, like Straylock Reapers. And on the main screen, they'll be looking at this. Like in a tournament, this is where I would be looking. In terms of analysis and improvement, this is where I'm going to be looking. I'm going to be looking at the base. But again, this is what whets your appetite. This is what gets you the gitchy, where you say, I must be like Straylock. All this complexity. But I want you to just hear this, and we'll make it explicit later. Every deviation away from Marine Tank Medevac hurts your Marine Tank Medevac push. Every deviation away from Marine Tank Medevac, such as this Reaper, such as this Blue Flame Hellion, such as a really fast drop, all this is going to wound these players' ability to do good Marine Tank Medevac pressure. So suddenly the player's like, oh, I'm not attacking anymore. Well, don't worry if you're not attacking anymore because, oh, I'm Imba Straylock and I got a drop coming up. So here comes yet another push. Ooh, I can move out with these Marines, and now I have Blue Flame Hellions. And look at me, I'm even getting a Viking that I can kill Overlords off with. Or excuse me, with which to kill off Overlords. Sean said very grammatically. They're poking around the front. And see, this is fun. I will admit, this style from Straylock can make you feel clever. And that's a curse. Anytime you're feeling like, oh, I outsmarted him, that generally is a very fragile play. Generally. Watch what's going to happen. Watch what's going to happen. Hey, look, suddenly, we've been non-stop aggressive almost all game. Where's this Viking? Oh yeah, now he's moving out into the mix. Watch how much this kills. I want you to just forget everything except how much does this kill. Oops, excuse me. Look at all the workers dying. Look at this thing opening up. 12 workers killed. 33 units total are dead. Look, these Hellions are not done yet. They're actually moving to the natural, where they're going to kill off a boatload more units. Huge numbers of more units. That was a lot of damage. As I look here, 19 workers killed, 41 units killed. In the units lost tab, we see a lot more for the Zerg player. Let me go to the every cam now. And I'm just going to stop there so that I am at 10 minutes. Now, I'm going to open up my notepad. I said trying to be more commanding with my computer. Alright, sweet. Let me move over to this one screen. Great. So, let's come back and look at our wonderful notepad document. We're going to write some things down. What's going on at 10 minutes? Alright, let's note this. Okay, at 10 minutes, we have 1 tank, 2 Marines, and 2 Medevacs. Okay, 1 tank, 2 Marine, 2 Medevac. Alright, good. We have a +1 upgrade going down. No stim. +1 attack, no stim. And we have 3 barracks with 2 reactors. I'm going to ignore the tech lab because, I mean, if I write down stim, he obviously has that. But okay. 2 reactors on racks. Actually, let's make this reactor. 2 rectors. No, let's do reactor. That's good. And yeah, he's done all this damage, but, you know, this is actually not that much stuff. And interestingly, watch what happens. Whether you do this analysis or not, watch the very real near miss that Straylock experiences. The Mutalisks just march on in. And there aren't enough turrets up. Sure, he has, you know, maybe this placement's a little bit off, but notice that these Marines, they don't even have stim. These Marines are falling fast. Suddenly, oops, I'm sorry, wrong tab. Suddenly, in this little unit's lost, where it used to be Zerg had lost way more units, now Terran is in a boatload of trouble. Just bucket loads of trouble. Demaga makes a huge play. He actually just rallies Zerglings here, goes for a big surround, and look at how close this thing is to getting killed off. Amazingly, Straylock barely defends. But what I'm slowly going to do is fast forward to around the 13-minute mark. And at the 13-minute mark, we see a Zerg who has 3 bases up, is getting some Evo chambers, has lost a lot, but again, that was just due to that bunker repair. But suddenly, our Terran buddy has not really moved out. So 13 men, still no move out. So I'm going to label this as our first game, Straylock game. So what I'm illustrating here is that despite all that amazing fanciness that happened at the start of the game, and an explicit kind of fanciness, where Terran got in, did tremendous amounts of damage, just absolutely gigantic damage on an absolute scale, very nearly lost because everything else was put behind. Now, often you will hear someone say the phrase, including me, say something like, yeah, if he just played a little more standard, you know, not done those drops, he would have had a little bit more. And a lot of people sometimes say, yeah, I guess. And it feels a little boring, but look at how incredibly exciting this game that we're going to see is from Empire Cost versus Morrow that was played on Metalopolis. This is what I call a lean build, what we're going to see Empire Cost do. And I'm actually going to explicitly point out a lot of what is lean about it from Empire Cost's point of view, because less is more. Empire Cost is going to make hardly anything but his Marine tank. Hardly anything. No upgrades, no starport, no Reapers, no nothing, just this crazy aggression. By the way, this is from the Daily Motion Cup. This is the first game that they played. So watch how incredibly potent this aggression is by Empire Cost. He's going to get his barracks up, and he's going to be going for a double Hellion opening that does a decent amount of damage. But I want you to think again back to this game, back to the Straylock game, where he did huge damage, but at the 10-minute mark didn't really have anything. And wasn't really able to do very much. So, of course, Marines moving out, Marines getting built, and now we're seeing Empire Cost cleverly. He is going to go for a little bit of bunker pressure, but it's not going to be huge. This is not really going to interrupt the grand flow of things too much at the start of the game. It does put a little bit of pressure on our Zerg opponent. But notice that this Marine pressure, this pressure that he was doing with the bunker rush, is still just Marines. Still just Marines. If I try to do some sort of pressure with Reapers, I'm going off the Marine course a little bit. If I try to do some sort of pressure with Hellions, I'm going off the Marine course a little bit. Same with Banshees. Same with anything that's not Marines and tanks and medevacs, quite honestly. But with good standard play that's lean, that uses fewer elements, you can get very creative suddenly with your attack timings. But notice that, okay, we see Hellions getting produced. We see a tech lab going down. 2 Hellions do pop out. Expansion going down. And notice that suddenly Empire Cost gives the add-on to his barracks. and is going very quickly for a stim upgrade. Actually did not pull guys off gas, which is used to be typical. It's less typical now, but still, just note that he did not do that. We see a second barracks getting constructed. Some very clever leanedness going on that's going to be coming up. Noticing no any sort of engineering base going down. Empire Cost is interestingly cutting marine production. He's halting his marine production at this point in time, so that way he can build this third barracks. Now, I want you to note something that's actually quite clever, if I can actually just come over here to highlight all the buildings. There's some cuteness going on by the fact that he's getting this stim so quickly, and yet is still going for this usual marine tank mix. Again, people tend to just think that standard is this sort of, oh, gross. Well, I guess I'm just going to be building marines and tanks and medevacs because that's what I'm supposed to do. Well, this is actually a very unusual opening that Empire Cost is doing. Yeah, he's opening up with a 2 Hellion, but then rushing for stim. There's actually, if we come back to the game in the unit station, there's no marines on the map. He's starting stim, and he's not making any marines. He's just trying to get a little bit of map control. Getting his map control with the Hellions. They're now hanging out by the wolf statue, which, by the way, got an update in one of the patches. This is a slightly older game. So we see this factory that was building at this reactor is now building its own tech lab. And what we're going to see is, yep, some Zerglings end up marching in. First Marines are actually getting built right now. And after all this craziness is going on with this barracks and rearrangement, then we see a refinery going down. This is some very odd timing. It's going to rely a lot on Crisp's control and a lot of good damage being dealt by these Hellions. Fortunately, Empire Cost is going to get a good window where he's going to deal a lot of damage. I'm going to ignore this damage because I want to come back to what's going on in the main. I'm going to just tell you he does a lot of damage in the worker line. We're just going to see a lot of workers get killed off pretty quickly. But yep, there is the tanks coming out. No siege mode getting researched yet. Empire Cost just going to be building a lot of Marines. He's actually just gotten this one refinery finished construction. So he barely has any gas. He's actually very low on gas. We see the second tank could only just barely be afforded. Now everything getting produced right in sync. Marines and tanks ready to do some damage. And it looks like the Hellions just now getting cleaned up. Morrow's starting his Spire. And this Spire, well, he's going to cancel it. I'm going to try to land the timing right on. Where's the Spire getting constructed? The Spire timing is actually comparable to the Spire timing that we saw in our previous game. In our previous game where Demaga nearly won against Straylock. But now coming back here to this game, we see all these Marines popping out right now. We're still seeing barely enough gas to do everything. We see a reactor go down. Still very low on gas. Hasn't even really transferred any SCVs. Just still playing extremely thin. There's some more SCVs getting transferred. Building a bunker. Barely has the money for that. And now, we're actually seeing another tank get built. Still no siege mode going down. And again, a very clever little rearrangement. Typically, players, when they decide they want to go siege tanks, are just like, alright, I'm building a tank and I'm immediately getting siege mode. And interestingly, you'll note that a siege tank takes 45 seconds to build. Siege mode takes 80 seconds to build. Cool, they get one tank out and they have siege mode. But Empire Cost is not going to do any of that goofiness. He is actually going to be getting the siege mode only right before he attacks. And we can clearly see, leading up to this point, that he could not have really afforded it any time sooner. I will actually rewind to the 6-minute 50-second mark, right when tanks just began to get made. Man, that was good timing on me. Yes, I'm such a good replay rewinder. Look at the gas buildup. Nope, just spent that on an extra tank. Look at the gas buildup. Nope, just spent that on an extra add-on. And only now, as this third tank is starting to come down, nope, still doesn't have enough. Just getting this starport down. Very lean. We're seeing only just now getting these extra geysers up. No engineering bay in sight anywhere. None. So for all the brilliance I gave Straylock credit for in that last game, for all the amazingness that went on with Straylock trading add-ons, getting his expansion up, getting himself this fast Blue Flame Hellion, I want to compare. We are at 9 minutes and 37 seconds. So, Koss game. At 9 minutes and 30 seconds, what does he actually have? In the unit counting station, we see 20 Marines, 3 tanks. 20 Marine. Or actually, let me line him up. 2... Where is it? 3 tanks. We actually have 20 Marines. 20 Marines. Making sure I get my counting properly. We see... Oh! Stim done. He doesn't have any medevacs, but Stim is done. 0 attack, Stim done. And he has 2 reactors on the racks. That's actually amazing. I actually misremembered that. I actually thought Koss didn't have an extra reactor on these barracks. But Koss is in way the better situation in terms of your normal, typical, everyday, average Marine tank push. Now, if you look through tons of ZVTs, you will see Terran players almost always doing an attack with a couple of tanks, a lot of Marines, right when Stim gets done. That is so typical. And that's a fine timing. But what we're seeing in this game is this is going to be coming out a full several minutes before when Straylock did it. This is actually very exciting to me. If we come and look at the Morrow cam, yeah, she saw me just like sniffling my nose. I thought I was off camera. Damn you, Sean, for forgetting. We see this push coming out from Empire Koss, and Zerg has really not even been able to move out once. And we see all this death going on, all these scans going down, and Empire Koss stimming, advancing forward, picking off more creep tumors, going to eliminate these spine crawlers, being surprisingly over-aggressive. But that's actually okay because Zerg doesn't really have that much. Has a couple of Banelings. But we're going to see the Terran, who plants a scan. Very smart, pulling it all back. And now we're going to see some more exciting things that are going to come out of standard play as we wrap this game up. Yep, we see him once again. Looks like, oh, loading up into the medevac, pushing over to the right side. Morrow does not have a third base up. Koss is still going to be pushing along this right side. And oh, how fun! Doing a medevac harass. Now, it seems like what I may have been saying in the Straylock game, it may have seemed as though I would argue, yeah, don't be aggressive and don't attack him early, because, hell, that's going to mess up your standard play. That's actually very different from what I'm saying. What I am saying is that it's fine to be aggressive, it's fine to do all that stuff, but notice how Koss, his playground of aggressive opportunities, all still revolve around Marine, tanks, medevacs. Did a bunker rush at the start, only requires Marines. Is now swinging around with tanks and Marines, unbelievably early on, but is really fun for this aggression because suddenly Zerg doesn't really have anything. Zerg would not have had his Mutalisks able to overwhelm this. We see this medevac popping in the back. Still no deviation from a Marine medevac tank path. In fact, this is good standard play, and there's always a moment in everyone's transition from this sort of unstable, one big attack, this play, or where they're trying to go for a big tactic style play, where they transition over to doing what Empire Koss is doing, where suddenly they're just realizing a nice timing of their opening where, oh, wait a minute, I now can move out with way more stuff way early, and now I have all this playground of aggressive potential. What I don't want you to do is to think at this point in time, ooh, maybe Koss should go for Blue Flame Hellions. Or, ooh, maybe Koss should get some Reapers to bounce up into his main. That would be a devastating mistake. Koss got a little bit of control with that big win with the Hellions early on, and now here he is doing this push. Morrow cleans it up, but not before taking a bunch of damage in the main. Morrow doesn't even have his third up, but what does Terran have? Yep, Terran is starting his own third. And look at this. Look at how unbelievably lean this build is. Even cutting out the engineering bay for this long, but we can see how incredibly fun this is to do. This is so awesome. People need to stop giving this normal play a bad rap. We saw how rapidly Empire Koss was able to accelerate this. And now, I'm actually still going to go through the end of the game. The game actually has another 6 minutes remaining, but let me briefly note the way that standard play feels crappy if you're doing it wrong. If you're doing these attacks, like the standard Marine tank medevac attack, and it dies, and then you kind of feel like defensive, and you're worried to move out to attack, and then whenever you do move out to attack, you get overwhelmed and you die, and that stinks, and it doesn't feel fun at all. And you're put on this defensive footing. Well, almost always the reason that that is the case is you're not focusing hard enough on getting your first big attack and all your stuff established, up and running. Like, that sort of stuff is distracting. Gosh, I need to drink more of my energy water. I need to dump it all over myself. Excellent. It's that you're not focusing enough on having a big, standard, nice army established fast and hard, because if your first big attack works right, everything else is going to click into place. Let's look at how everything's working out right now for Empire Kos. Oh no, a Baneling counterattack being set up. But suddenly, Empire Kos is able to put this big attack on. Is there a big Zerg counterattack that could really do damage? Well, once these Banelings do whatever the hell they want to do, no. Zerg has everything in the defensive footing. Yeah, there's some stuff that's going to get taken out. What the hell ever. But suddenly, look at this big pushing. All the micros here. Terran now just gets to float this to the center of the map. Is Zerg going to stop him in any way? Hell no. Is Terran worried about this expansion? Well, in a general game, you would be worried about a Zerg third base. Not in this game. You did a standard attack. You're shutting down possibilities left and right for Zerg. And now this push, is it going to get overwhelmed and die? No, your first big attack did a lot of damage. Zerg's going to have to battle hard to thwart this push. Zerg has been up against the wall all game long. Uh-oh, it looks like Terran is going to have another whole freaking army move out. You're getting to build all these extra reactors. You're now getting all this double armoryage, or excuse me, double eBayage going on. And you know what? All missile turrets in the main, how many of you Terran players have struggled with big Mutalisk armies ruining your day? And when I say, I'm specifically talking to you people in bronze, silver, gold, platinum. I cannot tell you how common it is to see players unable to leave their base ever once all game long. But look at this. Oh my gosh. These two turrets. Who gives a shit about these two turrets? The Mutalisks have to stay here. The Mutalisks have to stay back. The Mutalisk count is getting increasingly low. Oh look, a couple of Marines move out. That is the biggest counter threat that Empire Kos has had all game long. Now we see him moving out, doing a lot of damage and getting to essentially do what he wants as we breeze through the end of the game. I mean, it just gets worse and worse and worse for Morrow until he leaves. And interestingly, the last thing I'm going to do on ×8 speed from this game is show what it looked like from Morrow's point of view. This can be the most revealing thing ever. I will even remove the production tab. Here comes the early expand for Morrow. Come on, ×8. If only there was a ×16. Dear Brood War, please hurt my processor more by allowing me to have ×16. Uh-oh! It's a big scary push. In production, I guess I have to open up. We didn't overbuild. We did not overbuild on the Zerglings. Look at that. No Zerglings were built. We actually built our 2 spine crawlers. Okay, we're adding on our larva. We get Zergling speed started. We want to have a layer begin soon. There it is. There's our layer going down. Looks like we're going for some fast Mutalisks. Now trying to stay back a little bit. Okay, we're aware of the Hellions. We see an expand going down. I end up losing a good amount of drones. I did overbuild drones early on. But you know what? I didn't lose that horrifically many, given the fact that I cut so many early on. Alright, sweet. Let me continue to build drones. Yeah, I started a Spire, but I'm not sure I'm going to have the time to do that, so I'm going to get a Baneling nest going. We've so far had about 2 rounds worth of units that we could build. And suddenly, what do we see there? We see a giant attack getting ready to move out for Terran. Oh my gosh, now I've just stopped building drones. Look at me, I'm even with Terran in the worker count. I'm trying to get my extra gas geysers up, but here comes this huge scary push. And look at the size of that. I remember I actually watched this from Zerg point of view. I was trying to study Morrow's ZVT. So I watched this all from his point of view, and I was just like, God, that's a lot of stuff fast. You can even feel it from the Zerg point of view. And we didn't do as much study of the Zerg after this point, but I mean, Zerg now building up this army. He sees it wandering around to the side. Alright, he's trying to reposition. But right as he's getting ready to deal with this big threat, a drop comes in his main. I mean, you just feel out of control as Zerg. I'm sorry, I'm being dishonest. I'm not times-8ing you guys, but now I am. Alright, we killed it off. We're building a round of drones. What the hell? He's now hitting my high ground? What, I just started my third. We have not gotten to build any more than one round of drones after that last big attack. And here we are scrambling to get all our stuff established. We're trying to do some kind of defense. And this is honestly the worst feeling in the world. And then the gold lands, and immediately we see it getting morphed to a planetary fortress. I mean, this just sucks for Zerg. This is just a terrible feeling. So for any of you who thought that Standard wasn't exciting, you are wrong. You are very wrong. And in fact, there is this other amazing, beautiful example that we're going to see of some very nice lean play, cutting out all this extraneous garbage. And we're actually going to see the Terran player do perhaps even less damage than in the previous game. So let me just drink some of my energy water. Good, 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 good. We're going to pop over into the game. So we have Kirchi, or Kirshi, I don't know how to pronounce that, so I'm going to call him Kirchi. Kirchi versus Lalush. Many of you know Lalush, normally under the tag millennium.org. Lalush is going to be playing against our Terran hero. Again, we're going to see some very lean play, but it's not just herp derp, he went standard. There are tons of creative, fun decisions that you can make in terms of when you time what. In last game, my favorite was the ultra-fast stim and the extreme delay on the siege mode timing to enable us to get 3 barracks with 2 reactors to get basically this giant-ass frickin' army up really fast. So what are we going to see? It's actually going to be a similar opening to the one we just got done looking at. Very similar to the one we just got done looking at. Alright, look, lo and behold, it's a factory. Come here, you jerk. No big deal, we don't need gas to get a very fast reactor. Yes, so we're seeing the extractor go down. Yep, everything seems to be typical in Zerg front. And we see the command center going down. A transfer doth occur, and we do see 2 Marines are out on the field. 2 more than were in that last game. And that's because there's no bunker rush that has actually gone on. And hey, what do you know? We see very fast double Hellion coming up. We also see some Marauders coming out. If we go to the Terran camp, he hasn't really seen anything to encourage him to go Marauders. Might be trying to gear up for some sort of crazy, scary push with Hellions and Marauders. But let's just examine something really fast. Notice that this is basically the same thing that Morrow did last game. 2 Spine Crawlers. We have a Roach Warren in a good spot. Queen trying to plant. And these Hellions are really not actually going to do very much damage. But we are going to see Kirchi, again, he built 1 Marauder. He's building 1 Marauder, and look at this cool creative decision-making that he's doing. Just walling himself back in, not sending the orbital command forth, building 3 barracks. Cutting production. The factory has been moved back. There's Hellions. They're going to poke around here. We can keep the units lost tab open if you want. But I just want to note how little is going on in Kirchi's base. He's cutting units. He's cutting almost everything in favor of this cool standardness. Yep, there's a tech lab going down, now going to begin getting factories. There's, again, a pretty quick stim coming out. And look, a very delayed second reactor coming out. You're starting to see, again, how similar this play is. Still getting some Marauders, getting another tech lab. Wow, yeah. We're going kind of hardcore standard. We're not even going for like a super ninja fast push. We are just getting all the add-ons that we need. Oh, how delicious and delightful. Yeah, units lost. He did like maybe a few hundred worth of damage. I mean, even if we go to the workers killed, yeah, it looks like he maybe picked off a few workers. Man, I'm bad at turning on that other overlay. But now we just see Marines getting made, tanks getting made, siege mode not even getting started. Bunker getting made? Actually, no, at this point in time. Looks like Terran is feeling quite comfortable at this point. I mean, he's seen his opponent get some roaches out. And he's seen kind of a later layer coming down. We're going to see yet another advantage that this very standard play allows you to do. that we're going to see Kirchi get very aggressive, just as we saw last game, with the Zergling Baneling shenanigans that can give many people a lot of headaches. Kirchi's able to deal with quite well, especially because he got the read that his opponent got this Roche Warren. I think that's actually a good motivator for why he did not get that very fast bunker. But look at how just clean and elegant this production structure setup is. Again, no upgrades, no starports. We see the stim just finished. We see the combat shield going down. And right as we hit 10 minutes, we see that with literally virtually no damage done. If we come back to our notepad and begin to do this counting thing, let's do the Kirchi game. Kirchi game. We're starting to see how less is more. The fact that he's done less things has helped him out so much. Holy crap, 3 tanks. We're seeing 16 Marines. We're seeing even 2 Marauders. 0 medevacs, 0 attack, but stim is done, and 2 reactor racks, and even a 4th rack is now done. In fact, we can kind of see, yep, 4 less Marine, faster reactor. Or, excuse me, 4 less Marine, faster 4th racks. The math seems to add up as well. But we're seeing Kirchi do kind of a similar-ish opening. It's as similar of a game as I could find to the one that we saw with Empire Cos, where it went Reactor Hellion straight into just a good old Marine tank. But we're seeing Kirchi infuse his personality into this build. Standard has huge amounts of deviations in it, huge amounts of crazy fun stuff you can do. Hell, maybe one of you out there is thinking, I wonder if there's a way that I could do this fast push with stim and combat shield in it instead of just stim. And what we're going to end up seeing is that by being so aggressive, we have this added benefit. Look at the creep tumor. The creep spread is abysmal. We controlled the map space with these Hellions for just long enough to deny this creep spread. And holy bejesus, is this an extremely aggressive push. And it's almost all going to be off creep. Zerg is essentially unable to use the surround advantage that he gets from all those early creep tumors. And look at Terran carefully spreading himself out, and Zerg has just not gotten to do anything. Zerg's life has been a total frown town. Another word of advice, when you're being aggressive, a lot of you will see this and say, ooh, I want to do standard play too. Let me just build armies big and fast and go for it. You can position them aggressively. Most standard pushes from Terran would have to bounce from here to here to here and then to here. Kirchi is rushing up straight to here and sieging, but notice in both circumstances there's always a point where you kind of just calm the hell down and actually do a straight push from that specific location. So that's what's delightful about the way Kirchi's playing. He's getting the standard mix that allows him to rush up just to the brink of creep, but now he's not going to go nuts. He's not going to try to just box and move all in. He's going to be cautious now that he is right outside the gates of his opponent. Especially essential for Terran players. And this is all possible thanks to the fact that Kirchi is doing this lean as hell build. Siege tank, Marine, nothing else, no upgrades, no Blue Flame Hellions, no Banshees, no Valkyries, or excuse me, no Vikings. Wrong game. And with plenty of Marines in the mix, now finishing up with Combat Shield. And I mean, back home, most of the time Terran is going to struggle to get their third base up. No fight even necessary. Kirchi's way up at the front door. Just brilliant, incredible transitioning. Makes a couple of missteps that almost cost him the push. But no big deal. Kirchi will continue to stride forthward for a pretty clean, easy win. So now I'll take some questions. So again, less is more. Less is always more. You hear me talk about, in theory, oh, you know what? You don't want to do too many deviations because it'll mess up your normal play. Well, what did we get the chance to see today? We got to see a game from Straylock where he did ridiculous quantities of damage, but was in a rough spot once all his crazy antics ended. And in this game, we see Kirchi opening up with regular Hellions, not doing really any damage, and then doing a push that immediately almost wins the game, and Zerg is almost never going to have a footing afterwards. This is a very cool realization for many folk. It might not even sink in until you actually play around with it, but it will definitely sink in. Wow! Oh, it will sink in when you do it. Welcome to Dying, which, by the way, was the old alias of Mondragon on the World Game Tour ladder. Haha. Dear Day 9, the second game of Straylock vs. Demaga, couldn't Straylock do exactly what he did, but as soon as he saw the Spire making, couldn't he made an armory for Thors and eventually just go mech all game? Because he had a fast factory. So one thing that I want to note about what Welcome to Dying is saying is that it is an absolutely correct observation about how transitioning works. About how, hell, if I see a Spire, what options do I have? Well, I don't really have Marines. I could get an engineering bay to get a whole bunch of turrets. Thors is probably the easiest one given the circumstances. That's actually very smart transitioning. But the most important thing to note is not, here I am, what's the next logical step to do? It's, here I am, I could have been in a way better spot right now had I done everything before differently. Had I actually not deviated from the usual paths, I could have been at a gigantic army. How big? In that game, whether he decided to go for 4 or not, Straylock still only had 1 tank and 2 Marines at the 10-minute mark. Yet in the Empire Cost game, we see 3 tanks and 20 Marines and Stim at the 9-minute and 30-second mark. That's the real key to note. Yeah. Cool. So Obi-Wan says, Dear Day 9, I'm a gold level player who's having trouble knowing when to siege my tanks and when to push forward. Any advice on how to figure out the timing? As a general rule, the way that you'll slowly start to feel it out is that you can move up to a point in the map, and then you have to siege and spread out and very slowly work your way forward. It'll take a little bit of experimenting to figure out where that is, but a lot of times it relates back to the creep spread. What I will note is that the leaner your build is, the more bold you can be when you have to stop and begin leap forwarding ahead. I would just say it's okay to be a little bit early with your leapfrogging. Because if you're playing at a gold level, as long as you're spreading your tanks out, spreading your Marines out, and deliberately, carefully, smartly moving them forward, you're going to win. It's when you get to the Grandmaster level, like where you Empire Cost versus Morrow, where you really need to be smart about aggressively moving forward and then sieging and then beginning the slow leapfrog. Just make sure that maybe halfway between your bases you start leapfrogging forward. So let us divine. Let us see here. So Randy Wagstaff says, Dear Day 9, if lean play means more units, what advantages does creative plays have? That's a very important question to note because I would not want anyone to think, well, hell, I don't want to do any harassment ever because it's clearly bad because I have fewer units. To state the rule, the fewer units, or the fewer variety you do, the more overall units you have. The more variety of attacks you do, the smaller your overall army is. So the advantage that creative plays have is if done properly, they can occasionally do extra bits of damage. So you'll hear so many commentators say this, where they'll say something like, oh, the Banshee Harass only killed 5 drones. That may have been not enough. Anytime you're creative and you deviate, you need to do lots of damage to justify that deviation. So in that game 2, where Straylock killed almost 20 workers, that is actually still not enough. He needed to do even more damage worth of workers to justify how huge of an investment money and time-wise it was to do that sort of Blue Flame Hellion business. That's honestly why I have steered almost exclusively away from Blue Flame Hellion drops in my tier and play. I just don't do it anymore, because you'll get some huge wins that feel great, and a lot of times you'll even get in there and kill off 25 workers and then lose anyways, because it's disrupted everything else so much. So creativity and clever, cutesy attacks are great as long as they do lots of damage. I will encourage you, because that is the point of this daily, to go do more standard, because less is more. You can do all sorts of cool, goody, two-shoe, funky, monkey business. Ha. So here's a great question from Canadian K14, who says, what would a lean build be for the other 2 races? so let's just zip through it for Protoss. This would be getting just, the obvious less variety. The Colossus Void Ray Gateway unit mix was popular for some time, but it wasn't quite lean enough, so players are starting to steer more towards just Gateway units. We've actually seen a big surgence of Gateway only play from Protoss, because you know what? If I'm just making Gateway units and just getting upgrades for my Gateway units, awesome. I don't have to worry about getting Colossi, and then getting Colossus upgrades, and then waiting till I have enough for the Colossus. And I don't have to worry about building a whole bunch of Stargate units and trying to do lots of damage with them and all this goody-good business. One of, I think, the best examples of a Protoss play being less lean and getting punished for it is OGS MC versus IM Lucira. Game 3, or it was their game on Shakura's Plateau, where Lucira got 3 bases really quickly, and OGS MC did the deviation, the cute harassment to do Void Ray Phoenix, but the Void Ray Phoenix didn't really do that much, and Lucira just wrecked him with more Roaches and Zerglings. It was very, very straightforward. So for Zergliness, just to be very swift, it would be doing things like getting a lot of upgrades for your existing units, doing a lot of like Roach with speed and Zerglings, and that's it. Zergling Infestor upgrades that Destiny did in his Zerg vs. Terrans against Startail's Bomber. Super lean. I mean, Infestor Zergling upgrade. There you go. Demaga also has been doing that style quite a bit. Just generally fewer units. We've seen players like Line, Xenix Line, do just Mutiling. Not even getting any Banelings. Just Mutiling and upgrades. Upgrades tends to be a big component to a lot of lean plays, where you're just getting a small set of unit, but you're getting a lot of upgrades for them, both in terms of the unit-specific upgrades, like speed upgrades, but then also things like +1 attack. So let us do a last question from Bahabhabha, which might be Ba. Says, Dear Day 9, what can you do as Zerg when a Terran does something like this? What is so cool is that it demands that you have good, overall solid, straightforward play yourself. And so let's do Zerg specific first. If you're having a lot of trouble dealing with this sort of play, generally the problem is something like larva injects, that you're not really hitting your larva injects dead on the money every time. And interestingly, what happens if you're dead on the money with larva injects every time, you realize you don't actually have much flexibility in terms of your money, because you're spending a lot of money on drones and a lot of money on just dissipating this early larva that you have. And you can end up with enough Zerglings to deal with it. But we've seen really cool plays arise, like, for instance, Zergs who just halt drone production at 42 to 45 and just mass just speedlings as they're en route to getting their Spire. And instead of this Zerg style where it's build 70 drones and then build units, it's build 40 drones, build a ton of units, do things with them, be really aggressive, and then go back to building drones. So in a sense, what Zerg can end up doing is, instead of trying to think all defensive-minded, he can think, how can I really be putting pressure back on a Terran player who's trying to do all these aggressive, crazy pushes while still being able to stay alive? Again, look to Slush for examples of that style of play. Big Zergling, Mutalisk heavy style. For example replays, you can check out the MLG Columbus replay pack, where he did a lot of good stuff like that versus Fnatic MSI's Phoenix. Oh my gosh, it's 7:59, dead on the money. I'm going to wrap up this daily. Yes! Tomorrow is Terran vs. Terran. I'm going to look at the dynamism of the matchup. And after that is the Terran vs. Protoss. Because many of you have been asking, it has now been implemented. The voluntary Day 9 subscription now works with PayPal. So if you would like to support the daily, you don't have to. I'm just delighted to have you watch. But if you would like to just do an extra voluntary donation, it is $5 a month. It's at justin.tv/day9tv/subscribe, or just go to justin.tv/day9tv and just scroll down on the page. It'll have info there. You don't have to, but huge thanks to all of you who did that. You can do fancy things like participate in subscriber mono battles that will be happening next week. Ding! So if you'd like to participate, just feel free to sign up. And in other exciting news, you're all looking very beautiful today. Thank y'all. I'm heading out. Enjoy the